We hear the word narcissist thrown around all the time, right? On social media, in conversations, but the actual psychology behind it, well, it's way more complex and honestly more fascinating than you might think. Today, we're going to peel back the layers on the psychology of narcissism, what it looks like, what's driving it, and what's really going on deep down inside. So let's get right into it.
And that really brings us to the central question we're tackling here. What is actually hiding beneath that confident, sometimes arrogant surface? It's this incredible paradox, and we're going to unpack it together, starting from the outside and working our way in.
Okay, so let's start with what we all see, right? The surface level. This is the outer layer. These are the classic behaviors that we all tend to associate with the word narcissist.
So yeah, it turns out narcissism isn't just one single thing. It's this whole cluster of behaviors. You've got that grandiosity, exaggerating achievements, and this bottomless need for praise. But what really defines these outward signs are the lack of empathy and a real willingness to exploit other people for their own gain. This is really just the tip of the iceberg, the part that everyone can see.
But what's actually powering all those external behaviors? What's the engine driving the car? Well, let's go a layer deeper and look at the core psychological features that fuel everything we see on the outside.
First up, and this is a big one, is that grandiose sense of self-importance. And look, this isn't just regular self-confidence. We're talking about an exaggerated, deeply held belief that you are fundamentally better than other people. This belief, it often fuels these vivid fantasies of unlimited success or power or brilliance, and it becomes the very core of their internal world.
Next, we have the need for excessive admiration. I want you to think of this like a constant, gnawing hunger for praise. It's not just about enjoying a compliment here and there. No, this is a relentless craving that's absolutely necessary to prop up their own sense of self-worth. Without that constant feel from others, they can feel completely and totally empty inside.
And the third piece of this puzzle is a profound lack of empathy. It's an inability to really recognize or identify with what other people are feeling. And this is so crucial, because it's what makes genuine back-and-forth relationships almost impossible. It isn't always that they don't care. It's that they often just can't even perceive what others are feeling in the first place.
All right, we've seen the outward behaviors, and we've looked at the core drivers. But now, we get to the most fascinating part of all. What is hiding underneath it all? This is where we find the central, mind-bending paradox of narcissism.
So what is hiding behind that grand facade of superiority and entitlement? Well, the answer is often the complete and total opposite of what you'd ever expect.
And here it is, the paradox, right in front of us. On one side, you have the mask, the superiority, the arrogance, the entitlement. But behind that mask, the reality is the exact opposite. A deeply fragile self-esteem, profound insecurity, and very often this deep core of shame. That entire grandiose exterior, it's just a defense mechanism.
So you might be asking, how is this fragile state even maintained? Well, it's through some pretty powerful psychological tricks. That grandiosity is a defense mechanism. It's a shield to protect that super fragile self-esteem. There's also a deep identity disturbance, which means their sense of who they are is really unstable and depends almost entirely on what other people think. And finally, some powerful cognitive biases kick in, filtering out any criticism and amplifying anything that confirms their own superiority.
So, okay, this all begs a huge question. Where does this even come from? How does it start? Let's take a look at the potential blueprint for how these traits can develop over time.
The thing is, the causes are really complex. It's almost never just one thing. Research suggests it can start with a possible genetic predisposition, but then that's heavily shaped by early childhood experiences. We're talking things like being excessively praised and put on a pedestal, or on the complete flip side, experiencing deep neglect or abuse. And finally, social and cultural factors can play a huge role, especially in a culture that tends to reward extreme individualism and the appearance of success.
Now, before we wrap this up, there's a really important distinction we need to make. Let's look at the difference between having some narcissistic traits, which, let's be honest, a lot of us do, and having a diagnosable disorder.
Here's the deal. A lot of people have some narcissistic traits. A little bit of self-focus can actually be useful in certain situations. But Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD, that is on a completely different level. It's a formal clinical diagnosis that is pervasive, meaning it affects every single area of a person's life. And it causes significant impairment and distress, not just for them, but for everyone around them.
And that impairment, it creates major challenges in the real world.
That combination of low empathy and high entitlement, it almost always leads to serious relationship difficulties and major workplace problems. It's also often linked with other mental health issues, and, this is critical, the very nature of the disorder creates a profound difficulty with self-reflection, which makes it incredibly hard for someone to even see that there's a problem to begin with.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really big question. In a world that so often rewards self-promotion and this kind of grandiose persona, especially online, how do we tell the difference between healthy self-confidence and harmful narcissistic traits? Where do we, as a society and as individuals, draw that line?